Before air fryers, instant pots, and silent dishwashers, there were gadgets that made a scene. Big knobs, loud motors, and no safety warnings in sight. They weren't perfect, but they were awesome. It's Memory Surge. My name is Kevin, and we reveal the 30 vintage appliances we want back. Let's dive right in after you subscribe, of course. Clothes wringer washers. Ever wanted laundry to feel like a full-body workout with a side of danger? That's basically what the wringer washer was. A tub of hot water, a paddle to stir, and 2 rubber rollers waiting to eat your hand. Wringer washers showed up in homes before electric machines took over. You'd soak, scrub, rinse, then feed the dripping clothes through the wringer. Slowly, carefully, prayerfully. The rollers pressed out water and wrinkles at the same time. But they didn't stop for sleeves, buttons, or fingers. Many kids learned this the hard way. Still, these machines were legends. Heavy, loud, and oddly satisfying. You didn't just wash clothes, you survived laundry day. And somehow, that made everything feel cleaner. Tappan Fabulous 400 stove. In the golden age of space fever and shag carpets, this stove looked like it landed straight from the future. The Tappan Fabulous 400 wasn't just a name, it was a flex. A pull-out electric range tucked neatly under a towering backsplash of knobs, timers, and chrome trim that screamed modern luxury. It didn't open like other ovens. It slid out. You didn't bend down, you pulled forward. That made it both strange and strangely addictive. Home cooks either loved it or feared it. But one thing's for sure, it made the neighbors stare. By the 1970s, it was fading fast. Too bulky, too different. But decades later, collectors still hunt for it. Because weird as it was, this oven had style. Vintage ice crusher. Before crushed ice came out of your fridge door, you had to fight for it. Vintage ice crushers were part appliance, part upper body workout. You clamped it to the counter, dropped in a few cubes, and turned the handle until your shoulder burned. The noise, unforgettable. It sounded like a blender having a panic attack. But the results were worth it. Perfect little shards for lemonade, snow cones, or backyard cocktails your dad wasn't supposed to make that strong. Some models were electric, most were manual, and all of them were overbuilt in the best way. They didn't just crush ice, they crushed stress. And somehow, ice just tasted colder when it came with a little suffering. Butter churns. Back when store-bought butter felt like cheating, every kitchen had one of these. A jar, a handle, a paddle, and a whole lot of patience. You'd pour in cream, start cranking, and wait for something to happen. At first, it just looked like milk having a breakdown, but after 10 solid minutes of swirling and splashing, magic happened. Butter. Real, dense, yellow butter. The kind that spread like frosting and tasted like achievement. Kids were often drafted for the task. So were bored grandparents. Nobody volunteered to churn. It was work. Still, that first taste off the paddle made it worth it, even if your shoulder didn't forgive you for a week. Colorful refrigerators. If your fridge didn't match your blender, were you even trying? Back then, appliances came in full Technicolor. Turquoise, butter yellow, poppy red. Every kitchen looked like a candy store with doors. These weren't subtle machines. They announced themselves. Walk in, and boom, bright enamel staring back at you like it had something to say. Manufacturers weren't just selling cold storage, they were selling a lifestyle. Housewives circled catalog colors like picking out a car. The wild part? These fridges still worked 50 years later, loud as a lawnmower, heavy as a safe, but practically immortal. They didn't just keep your leftovers cold, they made your whole kitchen feel alive. And honestly, isn't that more fun than another stainless steel box? Toaster ovens with flip-down doors. Burnt toast and scorched wrists. Before air fryers and touchscreen ovens, there was the flip-down toaster oven, a compact little box that could toast bread, melt cheese, or nearly melt your skin if you weren't careful. It looked simple, 2 knobs, 1 door, and a glowing set of coils, but the design came with its own hazards. The flip-down door opened straight toward your hands, holding in heat like a mini blast furnace. These ovens didn't beep, shut off automatically, or politely warn you when something was on fire. You guessed the time, hoped for the best, and usually got a burnt edge for your trouble. But for many households, it was a miracle machine. Small, quick, and just dangerous enough to keep you paying attention. Rotary egg beaters. Long before battery-powered whisks and stand mixers with dough hooks, breakfast started with a metal egg beater and a strong wrist. The rotary egg beater had 2 spinning blades connected to a hand crank, and the only motor it needed was you. You placed the beater in a bowl, grabbed the handle, and turned it until your arm felt like it might fall off. It wasn't fast, and it definitely wasn't quiet, but it got the job done. Eggs turned fluffy, batter smoothed out, and cream actually whipped eventually. It was messy, squeaky, and almost always coated in flour by the end. Still, it worked. And once you mastered the rhythm, It felt like you were actually doing something right. Frigid Air Flare range. If any appliance looked like it belonged on a science fiction set, it was the Frigid Air Flare, introduced in the early 1960s. This range didn't just sit on the floor like a normal oven. It lived in the wall, with burners that slid out like drawers and controls perched up high like a command panel. The flare made cooking feel futuristic. No more crouching to check your roast. No more cluttered counters. Everything was smooth, shiny, and vertical. It even had a glass oven door that let you peek without opening anything. For a few years, it was the pride of trend-setting kitchens. Then, it vanished almost overnight. But those who had one still talk about it like it was magic. Gourmet salad set. There was a time when making salad wasn't just a side dish. It was a performance. The Gourmet salad set came in a big box, complete with matching bowls, wooden tongs, a dressing mixer, and sometimes a spinning base so you could serve with flair. This wasn't for chopping and tossing in the kitchen. This was for wheeling out to the table and making everyone watch. It usually showed up at dinner parties with iceberg lettuce, cherry tomatoes, and a bottle of Italian dressing that never poured cleanly. Guests applauded your presentation even if the salad was bland. It wasn't practical, but it made you feel classy. And for one shining moment, salad got to be the star. Telibar, built-in home bar. In the 1960s, being a good host meant more than just offering drinks. It meant revealing them. The Telibar was a built-in home bar that lived behind a wall panel or cabinet door. One button press and out slid a fully stocked bar, complete with shelves, lights, and glass racks. It was James Bond meets suburban dad. It wasn't just convenient, it was theatrical. Guests were always impressed. You didn't mix a drink, you unveiled it. Most units were custom built, tucked into dens, living rooms, or even bedrooms, depending on how wild your weekends were. By the 1980s, the Telibar disappeared with shag carpet and chain smoking indoors. But for a while, it made every homeowner feel like the coolest guy on the block. Wall-mounted refrigerator. In the post-war years, a few manufacturers experimented with wall-mounted refrigerators that hovered above the floor like a kitchen miracle. The idea was simple: free up space by mounting the fridge right into the wall, like a microwave from the future. It looked sleek, futuristic, and just a little unsettling. Most units were compact and cube-shaped, designed to chill small amounts of food for apartment dwellers or modernist homes. Opening the door felt strange, like accessing a hidden locker filled with leftovers. They didn't hold much, and installing one required serious support. But as a conversation piece, nothing beat it. Even today, people still look at photos and wonder how it didn't just fall off. Wood-fired cook stoves. Long before electric coils and gas burners, the heart of the kitchen was a fire. The wood-fired cook stove wasn't just for boiling water, it heated the entire home. You fed it logs, adjusted the dampers, and hoped your biscuits didn't burn before the stovetop even got warm. Cooking on one meant waking up early, starting the fire, and managing hot spots like a blacksmith with a casserole. Ash collected under the burners, smoke slipped through cracks, and meals took twice as long, but tasted like something worth the wait. These stoves weren't just appliances. They were rituals. A meal cooked on a wood stove had depth, smell, and warmth that modern ranges can't recreate. Just don't forget the matches. Portable countertop dishwasher. In homes without space for a full-size dishwasher, this little box tried its best. The portable countertop dishwasher sat next to your sink, connected with a hose, and promised to do the job quietly. It didn't. It shook. It leaked. It groaned like it hated every fork you fed it. You loaded it carefully, 2 plates, a mug, and maybe a spoon if you were lucky. It made a lot of noise and not a lot of sense, but for cramped apartments or retro kitchens, it felt like luxury. You still had to rinse everything first, sometimes twice, but it beat scrubbing by hand. It wasn't efficient, and it definitely wasn't quiet, but it earned its spot on the counter. Rotary dial telephones. Before texting, before buttons, before speed dial, there was the rotary phone. You stuck your finger in the hole, turned the dial, and waited as it spun back with a soft, grinding click. Calling someone took effort, especially if their number had a lot of 9s or 0s. Mess up one digit, and you started over. These phones weighed a ton, stayed attached to the wall or desk, and rang like a fire alarm. But they worked. The sound of dialing became part of the ritual, and hanging up felt final, like slamming a door. They didn't store contacts or send emojis, but they made every call feel like a real event. And honestly, that wasn't a bad thing. Manual coffee grinders. Before the 1950s, electric percolators took over American countertops. Most homes relied on hand-cranked grinders to start the day. These weren't fast or quiet, but they were dependable. You poured in the beans, turned the metal handle, and listened to the soft crackle as each one broke apart. Inside the drawer, fresh grounds waited like treasure. Some grinders were wall-mounted, others sat on tables, often carved from wood or cast iron. They jammed often, squeaked constantly, and took longer than most people had patience for. But the payoff was real. The aroma hit before the brew even started. It wasn't just about caffeine, it was a process, and for many households, it marked the true beginning of morning. Standalone ice cream makers. Standalone ice cream makers, common in the early to mid-1900s, turned porches into dessert stations. The setup was simple: wooden bucket, metal canister, ice, salt, and a lot of patience. Families would gather around while someone, usually the youngest, was stuck turning the crank as the mixture thickened. The process wasn't fast, and halfway through, the novelty wore off. But once the lid came off and the creamy swirl appeared, nobody complained. The texture was dense, the flavor rich, and the mess absolutely worth it. It wasn't instant or automatic, but that was the point. The waiting made it feel like something special. Salad spinner. The salad spinner showed up in kitchens in the 1970s, promising to do one thing: make your lettuce less soggy. It didn't slice, dice, or shred. It just spun hard. You'd wash your greens, toss them in the plastic basket, seal the lid, and crank the handle until the whole thing whirled like a carnival ride. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. Water flew to the sides, the leaves dried out, and suddenly your vinaigrette didn't slide right off. Some models had pull cords, others had gears that jammed if you cranked too fast. It took up too much cabinet space and made a weird thudding noise, but people swore by it. For once, salad didn't feel like an afterthought. Snow-melting flame gun. In the 1950s and early 60s, some homeowners traded in their snow shovels for something far more dramatic: a flame gun. Originally developed for agricultural use, these propane-powered torches were repurposed to melt ice on sidewalks and driveways. The concept was simple: light the torch, aim at the snow, and watch it vanish in a plume of steam and smoke. It worked fast, but it came with risks. Flames could scorch pavement, fry hedges, and terrify the neighbors. Some models reached temperatures over 2,000 degrees, all in the name of convenience. Eventually, cities stepped in and banned them outright. But for a few glorious winters, suburban dads got to feel like flamethrower-wielding snow warriors right on their front lawn. Popcorn makers with hand cranks. Before microwave bags changed movie night forever, popcorn came from a stove, a crank, and a whole lot of faith. These metal poppers, popular from the 1930s through the 1970s, sat directly on the burner and came with a built-in hand crank to keep the kernels moving. You had to shake or turn constantly or risk burning the entire batch. The sound built slowly, from silence to a single pop, then an avalanche of noise inside the metal drum. Butter was optional. Burns were not. The lid rattled, the crank got stuck, and steam fogged your glasses. But when it worked, it was magic. Warm, fresh, slightly scorched popcorn that somehow tasted better than anything out of a paper bag. Ronson can opener. In the 1950s, opening a can became a full-blown event thanks to Ronson, a company better known for lighters and luxury gadgets. Their electric can openers weren't just kitchen tools. They were countertop trophies. Chrome-plated, motorized, and surprisingly heavy, the Ronson models looked like something built to open vaults, not soup. You placed the can under a sleek metal arm, pressed a switch, and watched it hum to life with mechanical pride. It wasn't faster than a manual opener, but it felt fancier. Some models even came with built-in knife sharpeners just in case. Eventually, sleeker designs took over, but the Ronson stuck around in vintage kitchens. Naxon beanery. Invented in the 1930s by Irving Naxon, it was designed to mimic the slow, low heat used in traditional Jewish coolant cooking. It looked like a small metal bucket with a heating element in the base and a removable crock inside. You'd toss in beans, water, maybe some pork, and plug it in, then forget about it for hours. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. Meals simmered all day without stirring or supervision. In 1971, Rival bought the design and rebranded it as the Crock-Pot. But the original? That was pure Depression-era brilliance, quiet, reliable, and built to run all day on near nothing. Refrigerator stove sink combo. Space saving was serious business in the 1950s, especially in trailers, studio apartments, and post-war efficiency homes. Enter the all-in-one kitchen unit, a refrigerator, stovetop, and sink packed into a single metal block. It looked like a prop from a science fiction movie. Small, boxy, and entirely self-contained. You could fry an egg, rinse your plate, and grab a soda without taking a step. Some models even had a fold-out counter or mini oven tucked underneath. They were perfect for small spaces, but often underpowered, noisy, and hard to clean. Still, nothing screamed atomic age convenience, like a full kitchen crammed into 5 feet of steel and chrome. Waffle irons with cast iron plates. Before non-stick coatings and digital timers, waffle irons were made of raw cast iron and weighed more than a bowling ball. These countertop beasts, common from the 1920s through the 1950s, took forever to heat up but made waffles with crisp edges and serious depth. You had to grease the plates, pour just the right amount of batter, and trust your timing, because there was no indicator light, just smell. They didn't wipe clean easily, and if you forgot to oil them, your waffle became permanent. But they made waffles that felt like real food, hearty, golden, and slightly dangerous. Even today, collectors seek them out, because some breakfasts deserve cast iron commitment. Electric can opener. In the 1960s and 70s, no modern kitchen was complete without an electric can opener proudly parked on the counter. These chunky machines promised hands-free convenience. Just attach the can, press the lever, and let it spin its way open. Sometimes it worked smoothly. Other times it stalled halfway through, sprayed juice, or shredded the label before the lid. Still, they felt futuristic. Some even came combined with knife sharpeners or bottle openers, making them the ultimate multitasker. They weren't fast, they weren't quiet, but they were oddly satisfying to watch. Manual openers still got the job done, but these machines made opening a can feel like operating actual kitchen machinery. 1940s chrome milkshake maker. In the 1940s, bringing the soda fountain home meant owning a chrome-plated milkshake maker that looked like it belonged on a diner counter. These machines stood tall on your kitchen counter, complete with a heavy base, spinning spindle, and a stainless steel mixing cup that rattled as it blended. You poured in ice cream, milk, maybe some syrup, and flipped the switch. The motor hummed like an old car and whipped everything into a smooth, frothy drink. Cleanup was messy, noise was guaranteed, and the whole thing got sticky fast. But the results? Perfectly chilled, thick shakes that tasted like jukebox tunes and summer afternoons. No booth required. GE wall oven with analog clock timer. In the 1950s and 60s, the GE wall oven wasn't just for baking, it was for showing off. Built right into the kitchen wall, it featured sleek dials, chrome trim, and a giant analog clock right in the center, like it was keeping time for the entire house. The timer ticked loudly, the temperature was never quite exact, and the knobs had that satisfying click you don't get anymore. It wasn't smart, but it looked smart. Housewives set roasts and cakes by the oven's face like it was gospel. It may not have baked perfectly, but it kept the kitchen running on time and looked good doing it. 1950s hairdryer chair unit. Straight out of beauty salons and into suburban bathrooms, the 1950s hairdryer chair unit made home styling feel like a full-blown appointment. It had a dome-shaped hood, a humming motor, and enough heat to make you sweat before your curls set. Women sat under it with curlers in, flipping magazines as the blower roared like a jet engine. The built-in timer clicked down slowly, and heaven help you if it shut off before your hair was dry. They were big, bulky, and took up too much space, but they delivered volume, style, and the unmistakable sound of mid-century self-care. Soda siphons. Popular from the 1920s through the 1960s, soda siphons were the centerpiece of any classy bar cart. These sleek, pressurized bottles turned plain water into sparkling soda with the twist of a CO2 cartridge. You filled the chamber, charged it, and sprayed soda water straight into your glass, sometimes your lap if you weren't careful. They came in chrome, glass, or colorful mesh-wrapped designs that looked more like science lab gear than drinkware. Bartenders loved them, so did anyone trying to impress company. They eventually faded with the rise of bottled soda, but nothing beat the fizz, the flare, or the satisfying hiss that came with making your own bubbles at home. Fold-down ironing board. Before fancy steam stations and collapsible plastic models, the fold-down ironing board was a staple in many mid-century homes. Tucked neatly into a cabinet or wall recess, this space-saving wonder made ironing feel just a bit more glamorous. With a quick pull and click, the board dropped down, ready for action. And when you were done, it vanished back into the wall like it was never there. No need to wrestle with squeaky legs or find storage space in the closet. Many homes in the 50s and 60s even had these built right into their laundry rooms or kitchens. Some were beautifully crafted with wood cabinets and decorative trim, blending seamlessly into the decor. In today's age of minimalism and tiny apartments, This clever, vintage innovation deserves a comeback. Practical, stylish, and satisfying to use, the fold-down ironing board is a forgotten gem that made chores just a bit more elegant. Electric hot dog cooker. Back in the day, no kitchen or game room was complete without a shiny electric hot dog cooker. Whether you were hosting a birthday party or a casual night in front of the TV, this retro appliance made you feel like you were at the ballpark. Most models had rollers that slowly turned the hot dogs to perfection, while some even included a little compartment to steam or warm the buns. Kids loved watching the sausages sizzle, and adults loved the convenience. No stove, no boiling water. Just plug it in and let it do its thing. With its chrome finish and often colorful knobs or dials, it was both functional and fun to look at. In an era of quick snacks and kitchen nostalgia, this classic deserves another shot. It's a piece of Americana that combines food and fun, and it definitely belongs on the list of vintage appliances we want back. From sizzling stoves to hand-crank popcorn, these appliances made kitchens fun. Think we missed one? Comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more.